We have what they call the Billionaires Club in Nigeria, and a lot of the billionaires we know in Nigeria are part of that club. But there's a man in this country that became wealthy, in quotes, became rich, became a national figure, and every attempt he made to join the Billionaires Club, they kept rejecting him. They said, sorry, you can't be a part of this club. Yeah, we know you have something billion. You cannot be a part of this. And the singular reason why they did not, no, the two reasons why they did not accept him into that group is not on sustaining wealth in this new era. Sustaining wealth in this new era. Over the years, we've been able to produce thousands of millionaires and hundreds of billionaires. So a lot of people that have been a part of the journey of empowerment that we have done. This year makes it 33 years of empowering people. So we already have a lot of people that are beginning to operate in that realm of millions, and some are beginning to operate in the realm of billions. But the challenge is sustainability, and that's what I want to focus on today, because every time we come every year, it's very, very important for us to continue to grow in our wealth creation journey. When you begin to sit down to study rich and wealthy people all over the world, one of the things that you begin to realize is that there are people alive today whose grandparents were very wealthy, but they are poor. There are people alive today whose parents were very wealthy, but they are poor. So you find out that when you look all over Africa, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to organizations, hardly will you be able to see a family where wealth has transcended from one generation to the other, even to the third and the fourth generation. So you find out that a lot of wealthy people that exist today are more like the first generation of wealthy people within their family. So most likely, when you see wealthy people today, their parents are poor or their grandparents are poor, and then they tell you about the story of how they have been able to break through that barrier of poverty and come into a place of wealth. But when you also sit down with them, you find out that one of the major fear of a lot of people that are first generation wealthy people is the fear of, will this wealth that I have been able to create, will it live beyond me? So you see a lot of people thinking of how to ensure that their children and those that have come after them are better positioned and better equipped, so that the wealth that they are creating can transcend beyond them. Now, in the month of March, we have a group known as the Billionaires Conclave. Wisdom, Olumide, Timothy, they are all parts of that organization. And we have a lot of people that we're training and mentoring to be able to help them to build sustainable wealth on the continent and even in the world. And our focus in the month of March, in our meeting this year, was building transgenerational wealth. Why? Because we're trying to help people to understand that it's not just enough for you to become wealthy for yourself. You need to be able to build transgenerational wealth and build transgenerational organizations. And we began to look at some of the organizations that have not been able to move beyond 20 years, 30 years of their existence. And we also did a case study of some organizations that have transcended 50 years and 100 years. And one of the things I shared with them, which is part of what I want to reveal to you today, is the fact that one of the reasons why a lot of organizations and a lot of wealth does not go beyond the first generation to become sustainable is because most of the time the first generation is always a pioneering generation. When people are pioneers, they have that drive and that passion to make sure that they push and push and push until they're able to come into a place that makes this easy for them. So the first generation is always a pioneering generation, but by the time the second generation comes, unfortunately, the second generation most of the time becomes a maintenance generation. So the second generation begins to focus on how they can maintain what the first generation has created and pioneered. By the time we get to the third generation, you find out that the third generation have become an entitlement generation, because most of the time the third generation are people that are born into a place where they have not been able to understand the struggles of the first generation. They were born into wealth, they were born into ease, they have been able to leverage on the possibilities that have been created by those that have gone ahead of them. So you now find out that by the time we get to the third generation, the wealth begins to fizzle out instead of being sustained. So in order for wealth to be sustained and in order for wealth to become transgenerational, every generation must be a generating generation. So the first generation must be a generating generation that continues to generate wealth. The second generation must be a generating generation that continues to generate their own wealth while also maintaining the wealth of the first generation. So they use the wealth of the first generation as a leverage to speed up their own journey while generating their own wealth with the uniqueness of their environment and the uniqueness of their own generation. And the third generation should never be an entitlement generation. The third generation should appreciate whatever they have received as a gift of grace and as an opportunity to move faster and make greater impact. So the third generation should also be a maintenance generation that is also a generating generation, because you find out that even though we have one world, we have different seasons. So seasons will always change, time will always change. And that's why we say to people that in the world that we live in today, you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn continually. So in sustaining wealth in today's era, there are a few things that I want you to take note of. And let me just narrow it down to two. Number one, what is your definition of wealth? And then number two, how real is your wealth? If you are going to sustain wealth in this new era, you need to have the right understanding and the right definition of wealth. Number two, you need to answer the question of how real your wealth is. Now, when we talk about wealth, Sunday has done an amazing job in trying to help us to understand the difference between riches and wealth, because riches is more of cash-based, but wealth is asset-based. So when we are talking about wealth, we are not talking about just having cash. We are talking about assets. We are talking about impact. We are talking about legacy. So it's very, very important for you to know that if you are going to sustain wealth in this new era, you have to have the right understanding and the right definition of wealth. When you get the book Pathway to Wealth, one of the things that I did in that book is to help us to understand who a millionaire is, and then to help us to understand what wealth is, and then we looked at the components of true wealth. Now, if all you have is money, you are poor. If all you have is money, you are poor. If all that you can lay claim on is that you have money, you are not really a wealthy person, because wealth is beyond money. So when we look at what I call the components of true wealth, there are some things that has to be in place in order for you to say you are truly wealthy, because they are all the ingredients and components that come together to really create and define a truly wealthy person. Number one, strategic relationship. A truly wealthy individual is a man or woman that has social capital. It's a man or a woman that have the right kinds of relationships in their life. And you don't ever want to know what it means to have all the resources and not have people in your life. There are a lot of people that have done a lot of things to try to get money. They've kicked out people, they've maligned people, they've defrauded people, and they've done all kinds of stuff only for them to now have the money, and there's no one to enjoy the money with. A lot of people have lost their family in pursuit of wealth and in pursuit of riches, only for them to finally have the money, and there's no family to enjoy it with. So when we're talking about real wealth, one of the components of real wealth is strategic relationship. Number two is the material possession. Material possession, which is assets. So you need to have assets, and I'll come back to that. Number three is cash. And that's very, very much part of wealth, but that is just one component of wealth, because if all you have is cash, then you're not truly wealthy. Number four is experience. Experience is wealth. That's why we talk about wealth of experience. Number five is knowledge and skill. Knowledge and skill, because in the world that we live in today, knowledge is the new money, and those who know rule over those who do not know. To the degree that you are ignorant, that's to the degree of bondage that you're going to be experiencing in your life. Number six is health. Health is wealth. You don't ever want to know what it means to gather money, and after you have all the money, you don't have the health to enjoy the money. There are a lot of people that have lost their health in pursuit of money, and now they have the money and they are trying to use the money to buy back their health. And then finally, faith in God. Faith in God. We have said it over and over again. You are either in the secret cult or you are in the secret place. If anyone is deceiving you to think that you can operate in the marketplace without secret, that's a high level of deception. The world that we live in today trades on secrets, and that's why it's called trade secrets. So you are either in the secret cult or you are in the secret place. Everybody is using something. Just be sure that what you are using is the right thing. Everybody is using something. So the question is, which one are you using? Because many times we see the marketplace as just a secular place, but that's a deception. The marketplace is not just a secular place. The marketplace is a highly spiritual place. There are spirits that are functioning in the marketplace. Forget the suit and tie, forget the boardroom, forget the packaging, forget the branding. There are spirits at work. And if you don't understand the place of faith in God and the place of the secret place in wealth, you're going to find yourself in trouble. There are people that can mess up your journey when you don't have the right backup when it comes to wealth. So in order for you to sustain wealth, I've spoken about the importance of understanding the mindset that aids that, with every generation being a generating generation. But now I've spoken to you about the fact that you need to understand what true wealth is, and it's all about assets. Somebody say asset. Somebody say asset. It's all about asset, because most of the time when we get into all this cash stuff, is the poverty mentality. It's all about asset and impact. But let's now go to the next dimension that I want us to look at. So when you talk about sustaining wealth, you need to have a clear understanding of what wealth is, but you need to also sit down to ask yourself, how real is your wealth? How real is your wealth? Why? We've had a lot of people that have gone around making people believe that they are wealthy, and all of a sudden we suddenly realize that the wealth seemed to have disappeared. So the question you then need to ask yourself is, how real is your wealth? So when I started out as a young man, there are many things I tried, there are many things I explored, and there were many mistakes that I made. But over a period of time, I've been able to come into a place where I know what works for me and where I know what is stable and sustainable, so I don't get into some stuff anymore. But you see, when I look at young people today and I see how a lot of people get involved in all kinds of volatile stuff just because it seems to be the fad, it seems to be the rainy stuff, I sit down and I say, don't worry, they will learn. And I watch people refusing to listen. 6 years later, 8 years later, they come back to zero level. So we have today people that have handled millions before, but right now they have nothing to show for the millions they have handled. Why? Because what they thought was wealth was just riches. So they have not been able to have real. So how real is your wealth? So let me help you think through this. Just taking you through some thinking. Just think. You are a millionaire in quotes, and all your money is in the stock market. How real is your wealth? So a lot of people, all they have that they are calling themselves wealthy is portfolio wealth. They have bought shares here, they bought shares there, they bought shares there, and there's nothing wrong in that. But when we are talking about wealth, that is not really wealth, though. That is in the realm of riches. Because when you have money in the stock market and you have shares of this company, shares of that company, it's very powerful. It helps you to become rich. It helps you to have income. It helps you to make money. It helps you to grow your money. But when we are talking of real wealth, don't sit down in that realm. Because if the stock market crashes or that company falls up, you can move from 1 billion to 200 million. I think it was last year or 2 years ago when Facebook had a glitch for a few hours, and they said that the wealth of Zuckerberg was wiped out by like 7 billion just in a matter of hours or days or something. Now, so that's an example. So many people that are saying they are wealthy, how real is your wealth? Let's go to cryptocurrency, digital wealth. Elon Musk today, Elon Musk tomorrow. So we have a lot of young people that are making so much money. They've done crypto, they've done Bitcoin, they've done, no problem. But when we are talking of sustaining wealth, it's not inside stock market or inside crypto that you will sustain wealth. Because all these things are so volatile. They have their place. They are not wrong. You can use them on your journey to make money, to increase the money. But when it comes to wealth that is sustainable, you have to ask yourself, how real is your wealth? Because I was in a meeting, I think it was 2 years ago or thereabout. That's what today. The meeting was in January, and within 3 weeks, something shifted. I was in that meeting and I was talking about, the importance of real estate and this and that. And a man asked a question. And I said, what's the question? He said, sir, I follow you, but I see that you have this bias for real estate. You're always talking real estate. But you see, cryptocurrency is real. There's so much money in cryptocurrency. It's so real. So what do you have to say? Because every time you just be talking real estate. So when he finished, I said, well, I just want to ask you a question. Right now, as you are talking to me right now, how much is your total net worth in that crypto world? He said, I have like 38 million. I said, wow, wonderful. I said, so how many houses do you have? He said, I don't have a house. I'm a tenant, but I pay my bills. I said, you are a poor man. I said, you are a poor man. I said, look, I will advise you. If you truly have 38 million in crypto, go and remove 30 million now, cash. Go and buy 2 bungalows at 15 million. And then begin to make money from it. That is a cash flow producing asset. And then let the remaining 5 to 7 million in crypto continue to grow. He said, no, you don't understand. I said, all this, do you know what happened in less than 3 weeks? That crypto thing crashed. And then I got an email. And the man was insulting me and fighting me. And he said, sir, I'm the one that asked you a question, but I thought they said you are a pastor. When you knew that the crypto was going to crash, why didn't you tell me? You are now telling me to go and sell 30 million. So you already knew that it was going to crash. And I'm like, hey, baby, see me see trouble. How real is your wealth? How real is your wealth? Let me take you to another thought dimension. We have to do, because sustaining wealth. I've been around for a while. Hey, he's a rich man. She's a rich woman. Let's wait now. 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, 50. Let's find out whether you are still there. So if you are into portfolio wealth, you need to have a rethink of how to position that portfolio. Number 2, if you are into digital wealth, you need to have a rethink on how to position that digital wealth. Number 3, how real is your wealth? If your wealth is local, you have what I call localized wealth, you need to have a rethink. Why? Because the world is a global village, the internet is a village square. And if you are in a global village, you have to be a global player. And to be a global player, you cannot have local wealth without global relevance. So if you want to sustain wealth and all your investment is within one geography, it means that when something happens in that one geography, you are down to zero level. Case in point, Ukraine. So we also saw what happened in Ukraine. And we saw how that a lot of people in their thousands have to be relocating to Poland, some were able to go into Russia and go into all the neighboring states. And there are people that were called wealthy people in Russia. Today, they are fugitives. There are people that are called wealthy people in Russia. Today, they are looking for how to survive. Why? Because when they left Ukraine, when they left Ukraine, because all their wealth was localized and then everything was locked up, they left and they couldn't carry anything along with them. But those that had global wealth, even though they lived in Ukraine, they had wealth, they have investment, they have assets all over. So when they move out of Ukraine and move to any country, there are things waiting for them there. So how real is your wealth? Then let's talk about companies also. Let's talk about business, because now a lot of people understand that when we talk about the vehicles of wealth creation, all these things are the vehicles that create wealth. But we're talking about sustaining wealth now. So the syllabus is like we are bringing you to the next level. Because when you go to primary school, you have teacher. When you go to secondary school, you have teacher. By the time you go to university, you have lecturer. You don't have teachers. And you need to understand that in Wealth Summit 3.0, we cannot keep you at the same level, because over the last 2 years, many people have become millionaires already. And we need to now begin to give you the next dimension of the syllabus, so that you will not come and become a liability after 5 years of wealth. Because let me tell you something, it's better not to have money and then to have it, than to have money and not have it again. So let's look at companies. So when we're talking about sustainable wealth, how real is your wealth? There are a lot of people that the only wealth that they can lay claim to that makes them to say that they are rich is because they have started a business. They started a business, and then there are branches of the business in different parts, and the business is producing money for them. But guess what? When COVID came, a lot of people that were entrepreneurs, a lot of people that were business people suddenly realized that as COVID came and the entire world was in a lockdown, even though there were entrepreneurs that had businesses, their businesses were in the lockdown. Why? Because their wealth was tied down to just their company, to just the organization that they run. And because the business was locked down, they found themselves in trouble. One of the major, product of our nation that is doing an amazingly wonderful job shared with us in one of the meetings where we hosted her on how that for the first time in her life, in the midst of COVID, she went into deep depression. Why? Because even though she has built a business that was doing billions and they were doing cash flow in dimensions that were just out of this world, when COVID came, she suddenly realized that everything dried up. Why? Because the business they were doing, even though they had all kinds of stores and all kinds of outlets, it was all about people coming every day to buy and money flowing. And the entire business had to come into a lockdown, and she began to rethink her business model and her business system. So what that tells you, if you're going to build sustainable wealth, when you understand what true wealth is, then begin to sit down to ask yourself, how real is this wealth that I claim to have? How real is this wealth that I claim to have? I don't know if you know about Primark, and a lot of companies are folded up as a result of technology, as a result of COVID, as a result of the disruption in the economy. Primark was a company that as at 2019, they were doing billions. By 2020, when COVID came in, the company went belly up. Why were they going belly up? They went belly up simply because when they were, before COVID, their business model was all about having an outlet where people can come and buy. But they did not have an online, e-commerce platform. And when COVID came, because of lack of that e-commerce platform, the company was wiped out. And there are a lot of organizations like, so you can have a company, you can have a business. One of the films I'll probably ask you, or movie I'll ask you to go and watch, is called The House of Gucci. The House of Gucci. Now, many of you know the story of Gucci. But today, it will shock you to know that a business that was started, that was supposed to be a generational business, right now, none of the people in the Gucci family owns part of Gucci. Outsiders have come to take over because of a lot of things that are part of true wealth that many people do not consider. Because you are thinking true wealth, you are thinking, I have money. Are you raising a good family? Are you raising good children? Because at the end of the day, you might build what you consider to be wealth, and when you raise irresponsible children, they will wipe it out in one day. So that's just a few things for you to think about. So let's begin to look at some of the vitals that you need to consider for sustainable wealth. What are the vitals that you need to consider for sustainable? Number one, a good name. A good name. When we talk about true wealth is not about cash, it's about assets. And one of the greatest assets you can have is a good name. One of the greatest assets you can have is the asset of a good name, is the asset of integrity. Listen to me, there are names that opens doors. And when you come into a place where your name has been made great, you have become truly wealthy. And that name, no matter where the name is mentioned, continues to open door, continues to give a leverage. So listen and listen well. If you are one of these get rich quick, covetous people that just want to make money anyhow, and you want to mess up your name on the name of money, because at the end of the day, one thing that will help you to sustain wealth is what? Is a good name. We have what they call the Billionaires Club in Nigeria. And a lot of the billionaires we know in Nigeria are part of that club. But there's a man in this country that became wealthy, in quotes, became rich, became a national figure. And every attempt he made to join the Billionaires Club, they kept rejecting him. They said, sorry, you can't be a part of this club. Yeah, we know you have something billion. You cannot be a part of this. And the singular reason why they did not, the two reasons why they did not accept him into that group is, number one, your name. Your name. Your name. When we push your name into the market, the news that comes with your name, the controversies that comes with your name, the stories that come with your name, we don't want that kind of stuff with this group. That everybody here, when we mention their name, nobody will say this about them. Number two, the process of your wealth. You see, everybody here, we can trace how they started. We can trace what they did and what they are doing to become wealthy. But when we look at you, we can see the money. But when we look down, we can't see how there is a wuru to the answer. And this was in the 8 days of this guy. If I mention it, many of you will know it. 8 days of this guy. He was playing in hospitality, playing in oil and gas, playing in the aviation industry, playing today. He's nowhere to be found. He's still alive, but nobody reckons with him anymore. Why? Because, like Nee was saying in the first session, it's not about what you do now. Just come out and within 2-3 days, 2-3 years, you are making money and you say you are collecting money. No, it's not that. It's after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That's when we're going to know whether you are truly wealthy. Number two is positive values. Because when we are talking about sustaining wealth, these are the things that sustains wealth. Positive values. I don't know if you have read the book called Millionaire Next Door. Most of the time when we gather in the Billionaires conclave and we talk about different things, one thing I keep talking about, which is a regular course, is winning at the home front. Winning at the home front. Winning at the home front. Why? No matter how rich or wealthy you think you are, if you miss it in the place of marriage and miss it in the place of parenting, you are fooling yourself. As I stand before you today, I can tell you stories upon stories upon stories of people that used to be very rich, but marital problem, children problem, wipe them out. All of us know Bill Gates. You think that because he has money, all is well at home until Bill Gates divorce. All of us know Elon Musk. Just this year, the daughter has come out to reject the father. Elon Musk's daughter said, I'm disowning you. You are no more my father. I'm changing my name. So what is the purpose of a wealth that you gather, but there is no family and there is no lineage to perpetuate the wealth? So when we are talking about sustaining wealth, it's not just about have money, you want to booga, you want to chill with the big boys, you want to kitty cat. No, that's not what we're talking about. It's about making impact. It's about being valuable. It's about 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years later, people are still referring to the impact that you made. So positive values. And this, I want to pick two in that area. Number one is marriage. Number two is parenting. Marriage and parenting. When you read the book, the Millionaire Next Door, one of the things that the book reveals, because I did a research of rich and wealthy people in North America and found out that one of the major common thread among rich and wealthy people is a strong family. Strong marriage, strong family. When you watch the movie, The House of Gucci, you see how that one marriage to one woman, the entire Gucci lineage was wiped out because of marital issue of one of the sons marrying somebody, and before you know it, story. A whole Gucci. I want to Gucci. Marriage. So listen and listen well. As a young man, as a young woman, you are listening to me right now. In the pursuit of wealth, understand the place of a strong relationship. You don't want to get involved with a guy or a lady that is not going in the same direction as you. And then you don't want to get married and then begin to raise children that are not raised with the right kind of values that will help to perpetuate what you have done, because in your lifetime they can sell you and sell your assets. A lot of people today, I don't want my children to suffer what I suffer. I don't want my children to suffer what I suffer. They've sent their children to Canada, to Australia, to America, to London, and they are regretting it now. One, they send their children into the world without values to sustain them in the world. So the children have gone as supposed good children, they are returning as gay, returning as lesbian, returning as transgender, returning confused, and now there's confusion in the family. A lot of them have left and they say, I'm not coming back to the country, I'm not coming back to Nigeria, and all the supposed wealth that they have built. So we have all kinds of people that have started businesses, and then the children are not interested in coming back to run these businesses, and now they are in another dilemma. Let me deal with two more things and then we close. So I want to deal with those two, which are vital for sustainability, a good name, positive values. But let me now deal with two other physical dimensions. You want to sustain wealth, then consider the aspect of legacy. Legacy. One of the things that will help you to sustain wealth is building legacies. Building legacies that will remain after you. That's one of the ways to sustain wealth. Oh, what are you talking about building legacies? Start foundations. Have a foundation that will become the platform for the perpetuation of impact. So that through that foundation, the money you have made can be used to give back, to raise succeeding generations after you. So that even after you have gone, the foundation is there. And the impact of that foundation can be felt decades and centuries after you have gone. Consider endowments. Many of you need to go back to your school, go back to your alma mater, go back there and begin to endow, come up with endowment funds. To say, okay, in this school, I'm going to be building this hall. It's going to be the Olumide Emmanuel Hall for economics in the university. I'm going to be putting an endowment that everybody that comes to this school to study economics, everybody that comes to study entrepreneurship, the best 5 students, we have a $1 million or $100,000 or $10,000 endowment fund to support their enterprise. So these are things that will be there. That will be there. Today we talk about the Nobel Peace Prize. We talk about the Nobel Prizes. Alfred Nobel was a man that did not start out the way we all know him today. When he started out, he was one of those that produces all the weapons of mass destruction in the Second World War. Dynamite, guns. He was a gun dealer. He was producing things that they were using to kill people. And then one day his brother died, and the newspaper thought he was the one that died. And when the headline came out the next day, the headline all over the country was, "The merchant of death is dead." The merchant of death is dead. As far as they are concerned, the man that is producing what is killing people, he has finally died though. And when Alfred Nobel woke up and saw the headline, he said, I'm alive now, I'm not dead. He now found out that his brother died. So they thought he was his brother. That he was, say, so you mean that if I die, this is what they will remember about me, that I'm the one that produces what kills people? And he called his lawyers together. He said, today I'm changing my will, I'm changing my formula. Every money I'm making from today, I want to put money into what will help people. I don't want to be known as a man that kills people. So endowment for peace, endowment for drugs, all kinds of scientific invention. Many of the things that has helped keep people alive today were sponsored and paid for by the Nobel platform. So that is one of the things you need to begin to do. Let me speak to the issue of trust. Many of you grew up understanding that, you have to leave inheritance for your children. You have to leave inheritance for your children's children. And many of you are laboring to gather money so that you can hand it over to the children, but you are not factoring the fact that the children are going to be growing up in a world that is different from your own. So there are many people now that do not realize that if you are going to sustain wealth, one of the new things you need to begin to understand is to move from wills to trust. Move from wills to trust. Move from writing wills to say you are handing over something to your children to trust, where the entire thing you have built is put in a trust, and you can define the kind of access and the kind of progression that your children can have with reference to the wealth, so that they can all be able to become a generating generation. So when you look at people like Bill Gates, you look at many of the rich and wealthy people, they have told their children, we are not leaving anything for you, so that you can go and produce your own. Why? Because transgenerational wealth will not happen except every generation becomes a generating generation. So finally, you want to have wealth that will be sustained, then you need to invest in real and diversified assets. Real and diversified assets. Real and diversified assets. And I'll come back to where I always stand, real estate. Real estate is the only real investment. No matter what, I was listening to Lee online earlier on, and he was talking about all the different places where the wealthy people come from. And as he was talking, I said, Gbogbo need real estate. I was online. I said, Gbogbo need real estate. I was talking to myself. I was in the hotel room. I said, and he said it. He said, all of them. I'm everywhere there when he was. He said, they all need real estate. I said, Ashiri, yeah, now you are correct. Every industry on earth, everybody will come back to real estate. You know why? It's the only real investment. It's the oldest investment, the surest, the most sustainable. Real estate will hedge against inflation, hedge against devaluation. Everybody shouting, Naira is 700, but we'll go 1,005. If you like, let's say enter 3,000. If you have real estate, the real estate is there, appreciating and appreciating and appreciating. It is people that do not... let me not go into Nigerian problem. So you need real and diversified assets. So you need to come into real estate. You need to diversify your assets to make sure that you don't just have assets, but you have cash flow producing assets. When Pertinence launched IRE, a song came to my mind. Ire, 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 ayo, ope o, oniki mabo, oniki mabo, ire. That's the song that came to us. Ire pe won, ashire ire pe won. That means wealth, peace, joy, comfort is calling you. And I began to ask myself, how many people will hear the call of Ire? Why? A city today was a village yesterday. A village today will be a city tomorrow. You don't wait to buy land. You buy land and you wait. Many of you are sitting down here right now. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you had just bought one plot of land at 50,000, today it's probably going to be millions that you have. So listen and listen well. Do you know that there are a lot of people today, the only thing that is keeping them is the wealth that their father and grandfather or ancestors put in place that they are still enjoying today, 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later. I had a very, very amazing discussion. I close with this. With someone very close to me. Just about 2 weeks ago. I've been part of this journey for a while. In the 60s, the person speaking to me is now 71 years old. And I've known this person for over 50 years. And this person's grandfather, look at the story now. This person's grandfather had a land in Isaleko, as in the real, in the midst of the market. It's a 5-story building that they entered into an arrangement with a developer in the 60s. This developer did the development, and they had an arrangement that the developer will collect the proceeds for 25 years. When it was 25 years, many of the people that knew the details of the deal had died, including the lawyer that was involved in the transaction. One of the children of the man was the only one living in that house. Every other person has moved on with their life. Because he was the only one living in that house, he was the only one that really had some little understanding of, you see, massive, this is... to cut a long story short, the developer capitalized on the absence of key players and capitalized on the level of that young man and gave him 10 million about 15 years ago. 10 million to extend, to be the one to sign and extend another 25 years for the developer. 10 million. Guess what? The case has been in court, one story after, so everybody, they've been on it because I've been involved in that process. I pray, do this also, they've been involved in it. To cut a long story short, they finally, from lower court, they finally won the case at the Supreme Court, to discovering that the developer duped them by coming to one person. But where am I going to? Right now, everything has been settled. Do you know how much rent the developer is collecting? Listen, how much rent the developer is collecting every year from that property? 412 million. Yeah, per annum. That's what the developer be collecting. So the person now came to share the testimony. Say, sir, it's done. It's done. That by October, they are returning the building to us. And that the rent that the developer is collecting is 412 per annum. Okay, so I'm telling you in advance, okay, because I'm at 412 October. So we are going to collect 412 now, and it's 6 of us remaining that we share the money. This is a 71-year-old woman. Okay, so that we know what to do with my own portion. Now listen, this is a property of the 60s. A 70-something-year-old woman is going to be. So imagine 412 every year. What are you doing? So all of you sitting down here right now, they are now telling you of La Vida Prime. They are telling you of Ire. They are telling you of a platform where you can just go and plug in. You are sitting down there. Sit down there. Whether you like it or not. Like they have said over and over again. When we started out, we were saying trust us. Now, if you like, trust us. If you like, don't trust us. It's your life. Your poverty remains. We already have track record. We are producing. We are still producing. But the question I want to ask you and what I want you to think about is where your ancestors has failed you.